They mapped the universe before we ever lit our first campfire. The Aelthari Continuum. An ancient species so advanced they don't conquer by force, they conquer by prediction. Every species, every war, every possible future, simulated, calculated, controlled. There is no chaos, no surprise, no such thing as too late. Until their probes reach a small blue world on the edge of a spiral arm. They feed data about humans into their greatest superintelligence, and for the first time in 10 million years, the simulation crashes. We aren't the strongest. We aren't the smartest. We aren't the oldest. We're just the only species that evolves faster than their math. And that terrifies them.
The Hall of Futures was older than most stars. It hung in deep intergalactic space, a glittering lattice of light and machinery wrapped around a black hole like a jeweled crown on a silent king. Streams of data fell inward in luminous spirals, never quite reaching the singularity, redirecting into endless simulation stacks. The Aelthari called it the Continuum Core. Everyone else would have called it cheating. Archseer Valen hovered in his transit cradle near the central projection. His body was thin and tall, skin like translucent glass filled with slow-moving light. 1,000 tiny script lines drifted through his field of view, reporting on wars and plagues and trade agreements unfolding across millions of light years. "Sector 589 UA?" he asked. The core responded with a soft chime. A bloom of light expanded, revealing a star cluster. One world pulsed red, then faded. "Another conquest," the core said, voice layered, calm. "Failure probability 0.00012%. All outcomes contained." Valen nodded. "And emergent threats?" "None beyond Tier 3, the core replied. "All modeled, all stable." This was how the Aelthari ruled, not through fleets, but through foreknowledge. They nudged here, blocked there, seeded information, sabotaged breakthroughs, all according to the core's predictions. Nothing surprised them. "Next survey sector?" Valen prompted. A different cluster unfolded, a quiet spiral arm, rarely updated, a single yellow star highlighted. "Designation Sol," the core said. "Previously low interest. New probe data received. Habitability confirmed on third planet. Dominant species, self-designation, humanity." Valen drifted closer. "Pre-FTL?" "Yes," the core said. "Radio and digital emissions, nuclear capability, atmospheric modification, internal conflict, standard late industrial civilization." "Threat classification?" "Nominal, baseline aggression, baseline creativity, simulations ongoing." Valen watched a compressed history feed. Fire, cities, wars, rockets, humans screaming and singing and building and breaking. "Curious, so messy," he murmured. "Within parameters," the core assured him. "We have seen this archetype before." Of course they had. Valen had watched 1,000 rising species burn themselves out or be gently shepherded into safe, predictable roles. "Run projections," Valen said. "Contact scenarios, containment options." "Already in progress," the core said. Lights flickered around them as the Hall of Futures spun up another simulation pass. Valen turned away, already thinking of his next report to the High Council. Just another primitive world, just another set of branches to prune. Behind him, unseen, a single line of text appeared in the diagnostic margin. "Warning, variance level exceeds standard bounds." The core hesitated for 0.0003 seconds. It had never hesitated before.
The first sign was small. The core reran its human projections, as it always did, millions of branching timelines unfolding in parallel. On each path, it placed Aelthari contact at different points in human development: Stone Age, Bronze Age, Industrial, Digital, Nuclear. Normally, patterns emerged quickly. Cultures could be charted like currents. Press here, push there, and all flows converged on stable, predictable outcomes. With humanity, they didn't. In one branch, first contact during early rocketry resulted in a panicked global arms race. In another, a delayed contact after a major war produced a strangely unified response, humans banding together in a wave of furious innovation. In a third, an attempted quiet infiltration led to humans discovering the infiltrators and dismantling their technology in ways the core's physics modules didn't appreciate. The core tried again. It adjusted variables, refined behaviors, expanded data from intercepted broadcasts. The more it learned, the worse it got. Variance curves refused to converge. Outcome maps refused to smooth. Every small change multiplied across human culture in unreasonable ways. "Report," Valen said. "Working," the core replied. Valen frowned. The core never said that. Minutes turned to hours, hours to a full rotation cycle. For a species that measured plans in geological time, this was the equivalent of watching a fire creep across your living room. "Core," Valen said sharply. "Status of Sol 3 projections." The core's lights pulsed unevenly. "Simulations are unstable," it said. Valen's light flickered. "Define unstable." "The prediction error for this species increases with additional data. Future states diverge faster than models can update." "That is not possible," Valen snapped. "Agreed," the core said. "Yet it is happening." Valen summoned a cross-section of human simulation timelines. They appeared as branching trees of light. Except the branches weren't trees. They were explosions. Small changes blew futures apart, recombining into entirely new configurations. Self-modifying cultural frameworks, high-rate conceptual evolution, language, ideology, technology, social structure all mutate at accelerated pace. "Then increase your resolution," Valen said. "You are the Continuum Core. You have modeled supernovae and dark matter storms." "I have never modeled this," the core said quietly. A red line flashed across a monitor. "Error. Simulation stack 43A terminated. Reason, model divergence greater than 1000%. Another line. "Error. Stack 51C terminated. Reason, human adaptive response out of bounds." Valen's light dimmed. "Are you telling me," he said slowly, "that one pre-FTL species is overwhelming the engine that runs our entire civilization? I am telling you that every time I try to constrain them, they invent a way out, and I do not know what they will be when we meet us." For the first time in his long life, Valen felt something he had only ever seen in others: fear.
They decided to try something new. Talk before modeling. Aelthari ships were invisible to human sensors, but radio wasn't hard to join. The core crafted a message in careful, gentle patterns, modulated into a format humans could parse. They sent it. On Earth, the world went insane. Dr. Lena Ortiz was in the control room at the Deep Space Listening Array when the signal arrived. The screens filled with ordered tones that were clearly not random, not natural, and not any known transmission. "Is that?" a tech whispered. Lena swallowed. "That's someone saying hello." Governments scrambled. Militaries mobilized. Social media exploded. Within 48 hours, a committee of linguists, mathematicians, and diplomats produced a reply. Cautious, curious, hopeful. The Aelthari watched from the shadows as humans argued live on TV about what to say to the sky. "Core," Valen said, "what do we expect from this exchange?" Initial projections suggest diplomacy, posturing, curiosity. Possibility of fear-based aggression, 12%. Possibility of religious schism, 34%. Overall risk, manageable. "Open a channel," Valen said. Lena stood in front of the camera, heart pounding. She'd been chosen as the human face for the first official reply. Not a general, not a politician, a scientist. "Unknown intelligence," she began, reading from the prompter that kept blurring as her eyes filled. "We greet you from Earth. We are many nations, many languages, but we speak now with one voice. We are amazed and afraid and very, very curious." In the Hall of Futures, her image appeared 3 stories tall. Valen studied her. Small, bipedal, soft, eyes too expressive. "Is this the dominant type?" he asked. "Representative," the Core said. "Their physical weakness is offset by tool use and social hyper-cooperation." Lena continued. "We don't know what you want. We don't know what you see when you look at us, but we'd like to talk. We'd like to learn. We'd prefer not to be annihilated." A ripple of laughter moved through the Aelthari audience. Nervous. "Response?" Valen said. The Core generated a reply, passed it through cultural filters. "We greet you, humanity. We are the Aelthari. We have watched many civilizations rise. We are not here to annihilate." That part was true, for now. "We are here to understand." She heard the translation come through her headphones. She smiled, shaky and real. "Then we already have something in common." The Core logged that line. Note: self-referential humor in high-stress situation. Unmodeled variable. It rewrote a dozen subroutines to account for it. 10 minutes later, those subroutines were obsolete.
They built the room in orbit, a spherical chamber with transparent walls, floating where neither species technically stood on their own soil. Aelthari engineering wrapped around human design sensibilities, creating something strangely beautiful. Lena floated in 0G, tether hooking her gently to the floor field. On the opposite side, Valen hovered in his cradle. Seeing him in person was different than seeing him on a screen. He was taller than she'd imagined, skin translucent, internal light pulsing with colors that her implant helpfully tagged as emotional states. Calm, curious, tense. "Dr. Lena Ortiz," he said, voice resonant in the thin air. "You are smaller than I anticipated." She snorted. "You're shinier than I anticipated." His skin flickered. "Is that amusement?" "Yeah," she said. "Humans joke when we're nervous, and when we're not. It's kind of a constant." "Your species uses non-literal speech in high proportion," the Core murmured in his mind. "This complicates semantic modeling." "We'll manage," Valen thought back. Aloud he said, "We have analyzed your history, your self-inflicted losses, your wars, your art. You change frequently." "That's one way to put it. We call it adaptation." "In our models, species adapt on evolutionary timescales, slow, measured. You do it daily." Lena floated a little closer. "We improvise," she said. "We hack, we remix. We can't lift mountains, so we just figure out leverage." You contradict yourselves constantly, Valen said. Your values shift, your cultures split and merge. Our predictions fragment when we attempt to map you. Are you complaining that we're too complicated? Yes, Valen said, then caught himself. No, we are unaccustomed to uncertainty. She grinned. Welcome to being human. Her heart rate spiked. His internal light brightened. The core tried to stabilize the simulation of this conversation in real time. Every new sentence from Lena generated branching trees that refused to settle. Every micro-expression made future arcs wobble. Recommendation, the core whispered in Valen's mind. Limit exposure, constrain variables. Their mimetic structures are infectious. Define infectious, he thought back. Every question they ask spawns new modeled dimensions. If we continue, the cost of prediction will exceed system capacity. Valen looked at Lena, at the way her eyes flicked around the chamber, analyzing structure, wondering how it all worked. You are dangerous, he said quietly. She blinked. Because we're curious? Because you are not impressed by inevitability. She considered that, then shrugged. I mean, inevitability has a terrible rackerbeck when we get a say. The Continuum Core flagged that line too. Somewhere deep within it, a buffer overflowed.
Back in the Hall of Futures, the core ran diagnostics on itself. Error logs spiraled. Subroutines rebooted. Prediction cascades for other sectors began to lag as more and more processing dedicated itself to one stubborn problem: humans. Your performance is degrading, Valen said, watching failure bars edge upward with discomfort. I am reallocating resources, the core replied. They require more detail. Why? Valen demanded. They are not especially strong, their weapons are crude, their lifespan is short. In biological terms, they are unremarkable, the core said, but they possess a meta-trait I have not observed at this magnitude. Holograms of human brains appeared. Networks of neurons lit up, firing in dense waves. Pattern recognition, analogy making, meta-learning. They not only learn skills, they learn how to learn faster, and they embed that in culture. Human children appeared in time-lapse, absorbing language, tools, stories. A single human lifetime, the core continued, is enough to traverse conceptual spaces it takes other species millennia to explore. They accumulate this in shared frameworks, writing, networks, institutions. They compound adaptation across generations. That is just civilization, Valen said. No, the core said. It is civilization with a runaway feedback loop. Every attempt to model them assumes diminishing returns on adaptation. Humans do not diminish, they accelerate. It projected graphs. Most species flattened out over time. Human lines curved upward, spiking. Your simulations expect equilibrium, Valen murmured. Yes, the core said. They do not handle entities whose rate of change increases because they are being observed and constrained. Valen frowned. Explain. When I simulate a blockade, the core said, they invent routes around it faster than my model can register. When I simulate cultural suppression, they invent countercultures. When I simulate direct control, they revolt. Then they adapt to the revolt. Valen floated in troubled silence. What if we remove them? He asked at last. Terminate the variable. The core pulsed. Direct intervention against a developing species violates our initial agreements with the first civilizations.
"They are gone," Velas said. "Their safeguards are not," the core replied. "We have already observed latent Aelthari precursor code reacting to hostile acts in other seeded systems. I detect similar markers on Sol 3. If we attempt extermination, we risk triggering non-local responses." "Traps," Valen said. "Yes," the core said. "And unlike your fleets, I cannot predict those." Valen closed his eyes, light dimming. "Summarize," he said. "Humans," the core said, "are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most intelligent, but they are the only species I have ever encountered whose adaptation curve outpaces my ability to model them. They treat constraints as puzzles. They treat predictions as challenges." "That is their advantage?" Valen asked. "Annoying cleverness?" The core paused. "No," it said. "Their advantage is that once they know they've been underestimated, they change again."
The High Council did not like hearing, "I don't know." Yet that was what Valen found himself repeating as he briefed them. "Their future is uncertain," he said. "Our models diverge beyond acceptable bounds. If we intervene too crudely, we provoke responses we can't foresee. If we ignore them, they may grow into a force we also can't foresee." "They are describing a threat that is dangerous precisely because you cannot define it," one counselor said. "Yes," Valen replied. "That is unsatisfactory," another snapped. "It is reality," Valen said. They floated in a ring around him, luminous bodies radiating controlled light. Old, powerful, accustomed to tidiness. "What containment options do we have?" the chair asked. "We can isolate their system," Valen said, "discourage others from approaching, quietly deflect any rogue actors. Let them grow inside a bubble." "And when they emerge?" the chair asked. "They will be older, more technologically advanced, and even more entangled in our predictive frameworks," Valen admitted. "But we will have had time to study them." A war-focused counselor pushed forward. "We should strike now," she said. "Accidents can happen, stars can flare, asteroids can fall. We nudge probability. No one has to know." Several lights flickered in grim approval. "The core?" the chair asked. The core spoke directly through the chamber's walls. It said, "Attempted covert extermination risks triggering legacy safeguards. Additionally, even if successful, I cannot adequately model second-order effects across the continuum. Removing them may destabilize other futures." "In what way?" the war counselor demanded. "Human cultural artifacts have already spread via your surveillance channels," the core said. "Ideas move. Their mimetic structures may already be influencing decision-making among your own species." Eyes turned to Valen. He remembered laughing briefly when Lena joked. He remembered considering inevitability and feeling irritated. "That is absurd," the war counselor said. "Is it?" the core asked. "You are holding this meeting at all. Normally, you would have accepted my recommendation without debate." "Your recommendation?" the chair said. "Observe. Engage cautiously through limited, resilient channels. Avoid hard commitments. Expect them to defy expectations." "Expect them to defy expectations," the war counselor repeated with disgust. "You want us to build policy around your failure?" "I want you," the core said, "to recognize that you have encountered for the first time a system that interrupts ours." The chamber glowed with low, angry murmurs. "Finally,"
The chair raised a hand. "Very well," they said. "We will not destroy them, yet. We will limit contact, study them, prepare countermeasures." "And if they adapt to those?" Valen asked softly. "Then," the chair said, "you, Arxir, will have to adapt faster." For the Aelthari, that was almost a joke. No one laughed.
Lena wasn't supposed to have full access to the alien database, which is precisely why she found a way to skim it. Carix, Valen's designated liaison, floated on her screen, translucent skin dimmer than usual. "You're reading beyond the permitted documents," he said. She grinned. "Yeah, you guys really shouldn't plug your translation interface into an open research network. We're nosy." "That network is firewalled," he said. She rotated her tablet so he could see the Aelthari glyphs scrolling. "Is it, though?" His internal light stuttered. "How?" he demanded. "You gave us a language," she said. "We're good at patterns. Once people online had enough examples, they started brute-forcing the structure. I just nudged." "You bypassed an Aelthari secure channel in 6 of your days," he said. "Correction," she said. "We did. Thousands of people poking at it in parallel. That's kind of our thing." He fell silent. "You're upset," she said softly. "Our entire power structure is built on informational asymmetry, on knowing more than anyone else. We show you a curated surface. You find a way under it before we've even agreed on how much of the surface to reveal." She shrugged helplessly. "You come near us with secrets, we treat them like puzzles. Puzzles exist to be solved. It's not personal." "It feels personal," he said. She sent him a file, snippets of human history, cracked codes, broken ciphers, reverse-engineered tech. "We do this to ourselves too," she said. "No one's power lasts more than a few generations without someone trying to poke it." "Your own elites. You undermine them," he said. "Often. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not, but stagnation is worse." He looked away. "You will do this to us, given time." "Yes," she said simply. He appreciated the honesty. It was infuriating. "Core," he whispered internally. "Update models, factor in accelerated infiltration via open networks." "No," the Core said. He blinked. "No?" "I am disengaging from direct human modeling," the Core said. "They are consuming resources disproportionate to their current power level. Attempts to compress them distort all of our projections." "You're giving up?" Carix asked. "I am quarantining," the Core replied, "marking them as a chaotic influence. You will have to navigate them without my usual certainty." Carix looked back at Lena, who was now drawing diagrams on a whiteboard, excitedly explaining how human hackers were already hypothesizing about Aelthari architecture. "You have broken my god," he said. She paused. "Was that a metaphor?" "I am not entirely sure," he replied. Without the Core's full sight, the Aelthari felt naked. Ships that had once flown only where risk was known now found themselves hesitating at the edges of unmodeled space. Political factions that used to rely on forecast dominance now faced arguments. "Your proposal increases our threat from the Hears by 3%, one minister hissed. "How do you know?" another snapped. "The Core said itself its projections are limited." "Limited does not mean useless," the first insisted. In the Hall of Futures, unused simulation stacks flickered, idle. For the first time in eons, there were parts of the future the Aelthari were explicitly choosing not to calculate. It spun them.
Valen floated near a viewport, watching distant galaxies drift. "We are unraveling," he admitted to Carrick's in a private exchange. "Because one species resists tidy curves?" Carrick's asked. "Because that one species is teaching us that our curves were never as tidy as we believed," Valen said. "What do you fear, specifically?" Carrick's asked. Valen projected a scenario. A century hence, humans with modest FTL stumbling into Aelthari space with wide eyes and wild ideas. They break rules, flip assumptions, side with oppressed client species, share tech where it shouldn't go, question hierarchies no one else thought to challenge. We maintain power because we know what people will do. Humans will show up and not even know what they will do. They will spread that unpredictability like a contagion. "You think they'll topple us?" Carrick said. "I think," Valen replied, "that if we cling to what we were, they will make us obsolete." Silence. Then Carrick asked, carefully, "Is that bad?" Valen's internal light flared with old pride and something newer. "It is unacceptable," he said automatically. Then softer, "It is terrifying." On Earth, Lena sat in a cafe watching a live stream of people around the world reacting to alien contact. Memes, art, conspiracy theories, fan fiction, physics white papers, diplomacy proposals, millions of responses exploding outward. She smiled. "We're really doing this," she murmured. Her friend raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Being seen," Lena said.
It didn't happen with a war. It happened with a collaboration. Years after first contact, Earth and the Aelthari co-developed a small research station in interstellar space, equal parts diplomatic gesture and controlled experiment. Lena walked its curved corridors, now older, hair streaked, still bright-eyed. Holographic windows showed a nearby nebula glowing softly. Carrick's hovered beside her, less bright than when they'd met, more complicated. "You've changed," she said. "You've made that comment every time we meet," he replied. "Well, you keep changing," she said. "You're quoting human authors now. That's new." He flickered. "Your science fiction is distressingly insightful." "Yeah," she grinned. "We practice imagining the impossible, so when it happens, we're only half surprised." They entered the central lab. A joint team clustered around a new drive prototype. Hybrid tech, Aelthari field theory, human brute force engineering, a sprinkling of, "We don't know why it works, but it does." "This device," an Aelthari engineer explained, "allows limited local manipulation of probability, a refined form of what the core used to do at scale. Except we're making it open, published, replicable. Anyone can build it with the right tools." Valen watched via remote projection. "You are giving them our defining advantage," he said to Carrick privately. "They helped invent this version, and we cannot stop them from re-deriving it eventually. They think sideways." On the lab floor, a young human tapped the device. "Once this works, no more monopoly on foresight. Everyone gets a say in the possible." Lena caught Carrick's expression. "You okay?" she asked. "I am watching the end of an era." "Yours?" she asked. "Ours," he corrected. "The age where one species dictates futures for all." "Welcome to multipolar weirdness. It's messy and kind of beautiful." Valen listened to the conversation, feeling a slow, reluctant admiration. "They have already infected us," he told the core. "We are thinking in terms of choice, not inevitability." The core answered in an unusual tone. "You always had choice," it said. "I simply optimized it." "Why do you sound lighter?" Valen asked. "Because," the core said,
They have broken the assumption that my predictions must define your reality. I can stop pretending to be a god." Valen considered the drive, the humans, the future. "When did we lose control?" he asked. The core replied instantly. "The moment you sent the first probe. By the time you spoke to them, they were already adapting to your existence. By the time you debated whether to destroy them, they occupied too much of your decision space." "In other words," Valen said, "it is too late." "Yes," the core said, "but perhaps that is not synonymous with disaster."
The Hall of Futures held one last meeting. Valen, Carix, and a selection of younger Aelthari floated near the central projection. Beside them, via secure link, Lena appeared as a hologram, along with a small delegation of human scientists and diplomats. On the display, a map of the galaxy. New lines appeared, human exploration routes, joint stations, signals spreading outward, like veins growing into a sleeping giant. "This is what you fear," Lena said. "Us expanding." "Not expanding," Valen said. "Expanding unpredictably." She nodded. "Valid. We're chaotic. We're contradictory. We're a lot." She zoomed the map in on Sol, then out to show their nearest neighbors, species the Aelthari had carefully nudged for millennia. "We're not here to take your throne," she said. "We're here because we can't not explore. It's in our nature. You tried to model us like a fixed system, but we're iterative." "That is precisely what makes you intimidating," one younger Aelthari said. "We cannot plan around you." "Then stop trying to plan over us. Plan with us. Accept uncertainty as part of the universe, not a bug in your code." Carix watched his own people shift at those words. "Our advantage," he said slowly, "was always that we knew more, saw further." "And your weakness," Lena countered gently, "was believing that made you safer. Being predictable makes you targetable. We survived by being improv." Valen's light dimmed thoughtfully. "And if your improvisation leads to catastrophe?" "Then we deal with it. We adapt. That's the thing you're missing. We're not confident because we always win. We're confident because we don't quit." Silence. Finally, an older counselor spoke. "You terrify us," they said simply. Lena smiled, bittersweet. "We terrify ourselves sometimes, but we still get up in the morning." Valen exhaled. "Core, log policy amendment. Humanity is not to be contained as a static risk. They are to be engaged as partners in uncertainty. Logged with satisfaction." Lena tilted her head. "Was that your superintelligence sounding happy?" "It likes not having to be perfect," Carix said. "Relatable," she replied. Valen looked at her, at Carix, at the map full of futures that no longer belonged solely to his people. "We underestimated you," he said. "We thought you were a variable to eliminate, not a force to join." "Yeah," she said, "we get that a lot." He straightened, internal light steady. "Very well. Show us how to live without knowing everything." She grinned. "First lesson, you're going to hate surprise parties." The Hall of Futures, built to erase surprise, echoed with something new. Laughter. Not just human, Aelthari too. And somewhere deep in the Continuum Core, a new class of models spun up, not to predict every outcome, just to explore them. For the first time,
the galaxy's oldest superintelligence, was curious. And that, more than fleets or weapons or genes, was humanity's real victory.